What's good, everybody, and welcome back to BNN Brief News Network. I'm your host, and today, we are dedicating this entire show to one person, one name, one phenomenon, IShowSpeed. Now, if you know, you know. But if you're just discovering this young man for the first time, strap in, because the story of Darren Jason Watkins Jr. is one of the most extraordinary rises in the history of digital entertainment. And in 2026, that story just reached a brand new level. We're talking about a 21-year-old kid from Cincinnati, Ohio, who started making videos as a teenager, became one of the fastest-growing YouTubers on the planet, traveled across 20 African countries in 28 days, earned Streamer of the Year 2 years in a row, and is now, as of right now, in April 2026, about to step into a WWE ring at WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. Let me say that again. WrestleMania 42. Las Vegas. IShowSpeed. In tonight's presentation, we are going to take you through the complete journey. We'll start with the biggest and most recent news, his path to WrestleMania and his wild, chaotic, and absolutely entertaining feud with LA Knight, and then we'll go all the way back to the beginning. How a kid from Cincinnati built an empire, one outrageous live stream at a time. This is IShowSpeed. From Cincinnati to WrestleMania. The complete story. Only on BNN. Let's start right where the internet is buzzing most. April 6, 2026. On an episode of Raw, it was made official. IShowSpeed will compete at WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Not as a spectator. Not as a surprise guest. As a competitor. Speed is set to team up with Logan Paul and Austin Theory, collectively known as The Vision, in a six-man tag team match against LA Knight and the Usos. This is a WrestleMania main event weekend match, and it features one of the most popular content creators alive today competing in one of sports entertainment's biggest stages. And how exactly did we get here? Well, friends, that's where the story gets really good. Because this wasn't planned from day one. This was a series of wild, unpredictable, only IShowSpeed could make this happen events. Let me walk you through the timeline. It starts with a curse. Literally. On March 23, 2026, IShowSpeed was visiting an episode of Raw. During that visit, he encountered Danhausen. And if you're not familiar with Danhausen, he is one of the most bizarre, theatrical, and entertaining characters in all of WWE. He's the tooth-carrying phenom who has been terrorizing the WWE universe since joining after Elimination Chamber. Danhausen has cursed numerous WWE superstars. He caused Dominic Mysterio to lose the Intercontinental Championship, he made The Miz get clocked by Jelly Roll, and he once rendered a referee physically unable to count a pinfall. So when Danhausen ran into Speed on Raw, things were already headed somewhere wild. According to what played out on screen, Danhausen wanted Speed's password, specifically to turn Speed's stream into, and I'm quoting the character here, IShowSpeedhausen. Speed said no. And just like that, Danhausen put a curse on IShowSpeed. Now, Speed might have thought this was a fun WWE segment, a laugh for the fans. But the curse was about to follow him around like a bad cloud for weeks. 1 week later. March 30th, 2026. Raw comes live from Madison Square Garden in New York City, one of the most iconic arenas in sports entertainment history. The main event features The Vision, Logan Paul and Austin Theory, taking on the WWE World Tag Team Champions, the Usos, in a title match. Logan Paul's mother is in attendance at ringside. Speed is sitting right next to her. Now, at a key moment in the match, Logan Paul goes to his mother to retrieve a set of brass knuckles, a classic heel move, designed to give the Vision the edge. But things get complicated when LA Knight, who is at ringside watching the match, gets involved in an altercation with Paul. During the chaos, Speed ends up getting dragged over the guardrail and lands right next to those brass knuckles. And here is where the curse kicks in. Speed puts on the brass knuckles. He probably didn't plan this. The look on his face suggested he wasn't quite sure what he was doing. But in one swift electric motion, he swings around and socks Knight right upside the head with those brass knuckles. Clean hit. The crowd explodes. Speed, almost immediately realizing what just happened, removes the brass knuckles and walks away from ringside. But the damage, in every sense of the word, was already done. In the world of professional wrestling, you hit somebody, they're going to hit back. And LA Knight is not the kind of man who lets things slide. On April 2, 2026, just 3 days after the brass knuckles incident, LA Knight showed up at IshowSpeed's house. During a live stream. In front of Speed's entire audience. Speed gets thrown face-first into his streaming setup by a grown professional wrestler. Now, to be fair, this is not the first time Speed's setup has seen some chaos. The man's live streams are legendary for unpredictable moments. But this was different. This was LA Knight, a physical, trained, elite WWE superstar, showing up and delivering a very real receipt. The clip immediately went viral across every social media platform. The internet was losing its mind. After that, the story practically wrote itself. On April 6, 2026, Speed tried and failed to get Danhausen to remove the curse. But whether the curse was still active or not, Speed found himself tangled up in another altercation involving the Vision and LA Knight. During Austin Theory's match against LA Knight, Speed once again got thrown into Knight, this time almost accidentally, causing even more chaos at ringside. When the Usos came out to even the numbers, LA Knight grabbed the microphone. He challenged the Vision and IshowSpeed to a 6-man tag team match. Right there. At WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. Adam Pearce, the authority figure of Raw, granted the match. IshowSpeed. WrestleMania 42. Official. And to top it all off, this week also saw the release of Speed's WrestleMania collaboration t-shirt, an exclusive IshowSpeed X WWE WrestleMania tee, available through Complex Shop. This kid isn't just in a wrestling match. He has merchandise. He has a storyline. He is part of the WrestleMania machine. Now, before we move on to Speed's broader life and career, let's step back and look at the full WWE journey, because WrestleMania 42 didn't happen out of nowhere. This has been building for over 2 years. The beginning of Speed's WWE story can be traced back to WrestleMania XL in Philadelphia. April 7, 2024. Speed was there as a guest, specifically as part of the Logan Paul Corner. Speed showed up dressed as a bottle of Prime, the beverage company that Logan Paul co-owns. He was there to help Paul in his United States Championship match against Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. But things did not go according to plan. Speed found himself on the receiving end of an RKO, Randy Orton's devastating finishing move, right through the commentary table. The crowd went absolutely wild. Clips of the moment spread across the internet instantly. IshowSpeed, ever the entertainer, sold the move like a champion. He had officially entered the WWE Universe. Less than a month later, on April 29, 2024, Speed returned to Raw. This time, he joined U.S. champion Logan Paul to help announce WWE draft picks on television. This was a more subdued appearance. No violence, no chaos, but it showed that Speed was becoming a genuine part of the WWE ecosystem. Then came the moment that really elevated things. February 1, 2025. The Royal Rumble, live from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. Speed was given the opportunity to live-stream the event from an insider perspective, giving his millions of followers never-before-seen backstage access to one of WWE's biggest premium live events. But Speed didn't just watch. He participated. When Akira Tozawa was attacked by Carmelo Hayes and couldn't compete in the men's Royal Rumble match, Speed stepped in as a replacement. He entered the Rumble. He was in the match. And for a brief, electric moment, Speed was a legitimate Royal Rumble entrant. Of course, it ended the way these things usually end for Speed. Braun Breaker hit him with a vicious spear, sending him out of the ring. But the moment was real, the crowd was into it, and Speed's star in WWE had officially risen. November 26, 2025. Speed traveled to the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, the training facility where the next generation of WWE superstars is built. This was for the 5th episode of his series Speed Goes Pro, where he takes on challenges in different professional sports arenas. At the Performance Center, Speed trained under none other than Randy Orton, the legend killer himself, the same man who RKO'd him through a table at WrestleMania XL. Speed showed up wearing a Bape X WWE collaboration tee, naturally, and worked through the drills with Orton. At the end of the session, he had an actual match against Cam Hendricks, formerly known as Anthony Luke. And by all accounts, Speed put on an impressive performance. Randy Orton, for his part, was quoted after the session indicating that Speed had legitimate potential in the ring. For a man as credible as Orton to say that, it means something. And then, of course, came Danhausen. The curse. The brass knuckles. LA Night at Speed's house. WrestleMania 42. The journey is complete. Or rather, it's just getting started. All right. We've covered the big, breaking news. Now let's take you all the way back to where this story truly begins. Darren Jason Watkins Jr. was born on January 21, 2005, in Cincinnati, Ohio. He is currently 21 years old. He was raised primarily by his mother, Tiffany Graves, following her divorce from his father, Darren Watkins Sr. Growing up in Cincinnati, Darren was a high-energy kid who found a creative outlet early, YouTube. He started posting videos at just 11 years old, back in 2016. Not for fame, not for money, but because he loved it. He loved entertaining. He loved gaming. And he had a personality that absolutely could not be contained. His channel in those early years was small. Really small. He was just a kid in his bedroom, playing games and reacting to things the way only he could, with maximum volume, maximum emotion, and zero filter. But here's the thing about authenticity. You can fake a lot of things in entertainment, but you cannot fake the kind of charisma that Darren Watkins has. It's simply impossible to manufacture. For years, Speed was grinding, posting consistently, building slowly, and then 2021 happened. In 2021, one of his live streams went viral. Then another. Then another. The energy, the reactions, the completely unpredictable behavior. It was unlike anything the internet had seen from a content creator in a long time. People couldn't look away. By the time 2021 was done, IShowSpeed had surpassed 1 million subscribers. For context, that made him one of the youngest content creators with one of the fastest-growing channels in YouTube history at that point. He was 16 years old. Within just 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, he went from almost completely unknown to having millions of subscribers and a cultural impact that extended far beyond the gaming world. One of the most fascinating chapters in Speed's rise to fame is his obsession with Cristiano Ronaldo, and specifically, his famous Sui celebration. If you've been on the internet in the past few years and you've heard someone scream, Sui, that's Ronaldo's goal celebration, and Speed turned it into one of the most recognizable memes in the world. His energetic, over-the-top imitation of Ronaldo became a global trend that spread far outside gaming communities. Speed loves Ronaldo with a passion that is almost impossible to describe. It's not just fandom, it's a defining part of his personality, his content, and his brand. And in one of the most surreal chapters of his life, that obsession eventually led to him actually meeting Cristiano Ronaldo in person. The clip of their meeting is one of the most emotional things Speed has ever put on camera. Speed isn't just a streamer. He's also a recording artist. After his rise to fame, Speed began collaborating with music producers and releasing original songs. His style is firmly in the hip-hop lane, often featuring high-energy beats and samples from well-known tracks. One of his most famous songs, Shake, uses Ray Charles's Hit the Road Jack as its instrumental foundation. His music became both a creative outlet and a major branding tool. The same energy that drives his streams, the charisma, the intensity, the willingness to be completely himself, translates directly into his music. Fans receive it enthusiastically, and the songs perform well across streaming platforms. Music gave Speed another dimension as an entertainer. He wasn't just a gamer anymore. He was a multi-platform, multi-genre creative force. Here's something that sets IShowSpeed apart from virtually every other content creator of his generation. He doesn't just sit behind a screen. He goes into the world. The Speed Goes Pro series is proof of that. In this series, Speed takes on professional sports challenges, training with elite athletes, attempting real athletic feats, and putting his body and ego on the line. We talked about his WWE episode, but the series goes far beyond wrestling. Speed has raced against Olympic gold medalists. He has attempted training sessions in multiple professional sports. He has shown, repeatedly, that as athletic as his on-screen persona might seem, the actual physical ability is real. The man genuinely moves like an athlete. For Randy Orton, a 20-year wrestling veteran, to acknowledge Speed's physical ability after their session at the WWE Performance Center speaks volumes about what Speed is capable of when he's focused. But if we're talking about Speed's most ambitious real-world project, nothing tops what he did at the start of 2026. Beginning December 29, 2025, and running through January 26, 2026, IShowSpeed embarked on a 28-day African tour. 20 countries in 28 days. That is an extraordinary logistical undertaking for anyone, but for a content creator bringing his entire streaming operation with him, it is almost unimaginable. Speed traveled across the continent, meeting fans, connecting with local communities, and documenting the journey for his millions of followers. The response was overwhelming. In each country, crowds turned out in massive numbers. Speed wasn't just a visiting American YouTuber, he was received as a genuine cultural figure. The tour reached its emotional peak during a stop in Kenya, where Speed hit a record-breaking milestone, 48 million YouTube subscribers. During the visit to Kenya, that number was ticking up in real time, and when it hit 48 million, the celebration was captured live on stream. As of April 2026, Speed has surpassed 50 million YouTube subscribers. To put that in perspective, he's in rarefied company on the platform. There are very few individual content creators, not media companies, not corporations, but individual creators, who have crossed that threshold. The Africa tour was described by many as a career-defining moment. One publication called Speed a cultural ambassador. The streaming world called it the most impressive content tour of 2026. And for the communities he visited across 20 countries, it was something they hadn't seen before from a creator of his status. In 2025, IShowSpeed was awarded Streamer of the Year. The reason? His Speed Goes Pro series, his ability to draw massive crowds wherever he went, and his consistent output of content that drives conversation across every corner of the internet. And it was the second consecutive year he received the award. 2 years in a row. Streamer of the Year. For a kid who started making videos in his bedroom at 11 years old, and who had barely anyone watching him just 5 years ago, that is an achievement that is difficult to overstate. Let's talk numbers for a second, because IShowSpeed is not just a cultural phenomenon, he is a business. As of 2026, Speed's estimated net worth is around $10 million. That figure comes from multiple revenue streams: YouTube ad revenue, merchandise sales, brand deals, music streaming, event appearances, and his growing presence in mainstream entertainment, including WWE. He is, at 21 years old, a millionaire whose income is entirely self-generated through content creation. No inheritance. No head start. Just a camera, a personality, and the internet. Speed has also demonstrated a keen understanding of branding. The Bape X WWE collaboration tee he wore at the Performance Center. The WrestleMania collaboration t-shirt through Complex Shop. These aren't accidental brand associations. This is a young man who understands how to position himself at the intersection of entertainment, fashion, and sports culture. Now let's step away from the highlights and the milestones for a moment and talk about who IShowSpeed actually is as a person, because the character you see on stream is both completely real and also just one facet of a more complex human being. Speed is close with his family, particularly his father. Despite the chaos of internet fame hitting him as a teenager, He has spoken publicly about how his family has remained a grounding presence in his life. Speed also has a daughter named Nova, whom he has occasionally mentioned during streams. He doesn't talk about her frequently, which is a deliberate choice to protect her privacy, but the mentions he has made suggest a young man who takes that responsibility seriously. As of 2026, Speed is believed to be single. He had a previous relationship with a social media personality named Renee, which ended during public live stream interactions, the kind of messy, unfiltered public moment that comes with living your life on camera. But Speed has largely kept his personal life private since then, choosing to focus his online presence on entertainment rather than relationship content. One thing that gets lost in discussions of IShowSpeed is the discipline that underlies the chaos. The screaming, the reactions, the unpredictable moments, those are real. Speed is not performing a character that is disconnected from who he actually is. But what people sometimes miss is that creating content at this level, this consistently, across this many platforms, for this many years, requires an extraordinary work ethic. He started when he was 11. He was grinding when nobody was watching. He kept going when the audience was small. And when the viral moment hit, he was ready, because he'd been preparing for it, consciously or not, for years. Speed also navigated the explosion of fame as a teenager, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Sudden, massive internet fame at 15 or 16 years old is a pressure that has derailed many careers. Speed, for all the controversy that has come with his journey, has largely managed to keep moving forward. Speed stands approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, or 173 centimeters. He moves with the energy and athleticism of someone who genuinely loves physical activity, which is part of why his WWE journey has felt so natural to watch. He doesn't look out of place in an athletic context. The man is built for movement. Now, no complete portrait of IShowSpeed would be honest without acknowledging that his journey has included significant controversy. Speed is a creator who operates without a filter, and that has produced moments that have generated real criticism alongside the entertainment. Speed's controversies over the years have ranged from in-stream behavior, outbursts, inappropriate comments, moments that crossed lines, to bans from gaming platforms. He was famously banned from Roblox during an infamous streaming moment that spread across the internet. He has been banned and suspended from various platforms at different points in his career. The important context here is that Speed's content is built on maximum authenticity and minimum filtering. That is both his greatest strength and the source of his biggest problems. When you broadcast yourself live to millions of people with no script and no guardrails, you will inevitably have moments that you regret. Speed has had those moments. What the trajectory of Speed's career shows, however, is growth. As he has matured, from a teenager in 2021 to a 21-year-old in 2026, the content has evolved. The chaos is still there, because the chaos is part of what makes Speed who he is. But there is a greater sense of intentionality around where he goes and what he does. The Africa Tour was an intentional, values-driven project. The Speed Goes Pro series is a disciplined commitment to storytelling. The WWE partnership is a carefully developed relationship that has grown over 2 years. These are not the moves of someone who stumbled into fame and is flailing. These are the moves of someone who is actively building a legacy. Speed has shown, particularly in recent years, that he is capable of taking the energy and passion that have always defined him and channeling it into projects that have real cultural weight. That's a form of growth. That's maturity operating at internet speed. Let's zoom out for a moment and ask the bigger question. Why does IShowSpeed matter? Not just as entertainment, but as a cultural phenomenon. In a media landscape saturated with influencers, branded content, and heavily produced personas, Speed represents something genuinely different. Unfiltered, unmanaged, unpolished authenticity. His clips go viral almost instantly, not because they are carefully constructed, but because they are real. Whether it's an emotional reaction, a rage moment, an encounter with a world-famous athlete, or an accidental brass knuckles incident on Raw, Speed generates genuine moments. And genuine moments are the rarest currency in the content economy. He has also demonstrated how authenticity and personality can be more powerful than polished production. By simply being himself, He has built a massive global audience. No television network, no major media company, no institutional backing. Just a person and a camera. Speed's audience is genuinely global. His fans in Africa turned out by the thousands during his 2026 tour. His fan base in Southeast Asia is enormous. He has visited the Philippines and Indonesia and was greeted by crowds that would be remarkable for any entertainer, let alone a YouTuber. He has transcended the category of gaming content creator entirely. He is not competing with other streamers for the gaming audience. He is competing with mainstream entertainment for the broader cultural conversation. And he's winning. IShowSpeed has been described as one of the defining faces of Gen Z internet culture. That characterization is accurate, but it understates the scope of his influence. His content reaches Gen Z, but it also reaches older fans who discover him through viral clips, younger kids who grew up watching him, and adults who follow WWE and stumbled into his storyline. He bridges worlds. Gaming and wrestling. Sports and music. Online content and mainstream media. The internet and the physical world, as his Africa tour proved dramatically. That ability to bridge worlds is a rare gift. And at 21 years old, IShowSpeed is still very much at the beginning of what that gift can produce. All right. Let's bring it back to the present and look ahead to what is happening right now. WrestleMania 42. Las Vegas, Nevada. IShowSpeed teams with Logan Paul and Austin Theory, The Vision, against LA Knight and the Usos. Let's break down what this match actually represents. On one side, Logan Paul, an elite athlete and one of the most legitimate crossover celebrities in WWE's recent history. Austin Theory, a trained, experienced WWE superstar who is fully committed to the Vision character. And IShowSpeed, 21 years old, officially debuting in a WrestleMania match. On the other side, LA Knight, one of the most over talents in all of WWE, with a genuine connection to the crowd that makes him one of the most reliable performers on the roster. And the Usos, one of the most accomplished tag teams in WWE history, with championship pedigrees that stretch back years. This is not a throwaway match. This is a legitimate WrestleMania showdown, with real heat behind it, a fully developed storyline, and an IShowSpeed performance that the entire internet is going to be watching. Speed's job in this match is not to be a professional wrestler. His job is to be IShowSpeed, to bring the energy, the unpredictability, the moments that only he can create. His training session with Randy Orton showed that he has real physical ability. His years of being a natural entertainer mean he understands how to play to a crowd. The match is being built around a storyline that has legitimate emotional stakes. Speed was cursed. Speed accidentally hit someone with brass knuckles. Speed got thrown through his streaming setup. Now Speed has to go to WrestleMania and face the consequences. That's a real story. Fans are invested. What WrestleMania 42 represents for IShowSpeed's career is a stamp of legitimacy that is difficult to replicate. WWE's WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of sports entertainment. Being part of it, not as a cameo, but as a match participant with a real storyline, is a credential that follows you forever. When people look back on the IShowSpeed story 10 years from now, this chapter is going to be part of it. The kid from Cincinnati who ended up at WrestleMania. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of IShowSpeed. Or at least, the story so far. Because at 21 years old, with 50 million YouTube subscribers, a WrestleMania match on his resume, a music career, 2 consecutive Streamer of the Year awards, and an Africa tour that made history, Darren Jason Watkins Jr. is still, almost impossibly, at the beginning. The numbers will grow. The moments will multiply. The story will keep getting bigger. Because that is what IShowSpeed does. He grows. He expands. He takes the next impossible thing and makes it happen. He's been RKO'd through a commentary table at WrestleMania. He's been cursed by a tooth-collecting WWE character. He's accidentally punched a professional wrestler in the face with brass knuckles on national television. He's had LA Knight show up at his house and throw him into his streaming setup. And through all of it, every single one of those moments, Speed has come out the other side more famous, more beloved, and more relevant than he was before. That, friends, is the IShowSpeed formula. And it shows no signs of stopping. We'll be watching WrestleMania 42. You should be too. For BNN Brief News Network, I'm your host. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. We'll see you next time.